So chapter 2 is all about solving linear inequalities. And in 2.1, we're going to talk about writing and graphing inequalities before we actually get to solving it. So first, let's talk about what exactly an inequality is. So this whole chapter is about inequalities, and an inequality is a mathematical sentence that compares expressions. So an inequality, it's kind of in the title, an inequality is something that is not equal, right? We've been dealing with solving equations. Equations are equal or have an equal sign. Inequalities are not equal. They're inequalities. So I want you guys to turn to the front cover of your packet. We're going to make a little chart here, and we're going to talk about all of our inequality symbols, okay? So let's talk about, I'm going to make a little chart here. I need 3 columns. The first one doesn't need to be that big. I'm going to leave a lot of space for the second column. And then the third column doesn't need to be that big. Okay? And there's 4 different inequalities we're going to talk about. So we need 4 columns here. 1, so go ahead and draw this little chart, just like I did here. And let's go ahead and label these. The first row will be the actual symbol. The second row will be the meaning. And the last row will be the graph. So these are inequalities. The first symbol we're going to talk about is the less than symbol. So draw the less than symbol in the first column. Under meaning, we're going to talk about what this is. I just said it. It's the less than symbol. So write less than. You might also hear fewer or fewer than when we're talking about less than. So those are 2 things you might hear when we're talking about less than. Okay? The less than symbol on a graph is going to be a circle that is not filled in with an arrow going to the left. Okay, so go ahead and fill in the first part of the chart here. And we're going to keep going. After less than, our next symbol is greater than. So again, under the meaning, it's greater than. You might also hear more than. And on a graph, that's going to be an open circle with an arrow to the right. Okay. All these graphs are always on number lines. So the reason the arrow is to the right is because the more than numbers, the numbers greater than something, are always to the right on a number line. 2 more symbols. The next one is less than or equal to. So it's a less than symbol with a line underneath it. That represents less than or equal to. So under meaning, let's write less than or equal to. You might also hear at most, right? Because if I say it's at most 5, that means it could be less than or equal to 5. Or you might hear no more than. So any of those things mean less than or equal to. Less than or equal to is a circle that is filled in. Because the equal to part, we have to include wherever our circle is, and the arrows to the left. And our last symbol is greater than or equal to. So let's write that. That's greater than or equal to. And you might hear at least when we're talking about greater than or equal to. If I say at least, that's greater than or equal to. Or if I say no less than, that's greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to, oops. I'm going to put that circle, I meant to pick an eraser. I'm going to pick that circle. and put it over here. Greater than or equal to is a closed circle with an arrow to the right. So make sure you have this chart written down in the front cover of your packet. This is going to be really important. We're going to reference this a lot this chapter. So have this written down. Pause it here if you have to. Once you've got this written down, we're going to go and we're going to actually write some inequalities. So pause it if you need to. Once you've got this, let's move on to example 1. It says write each sentence as an inequality. So I'm going to break this down into parts here. Okay, the first part says a number W. So that's my first part. A number W minus 3.5 is less than or equal to -2. So these are all the parts of my inequality. And now we're going to write it. We're basically going to write what it says. It says a number W. Okay, I'll write W. It says minus. Okay, I'll write a minus sign. Minus what? It's 3.5. Is less than or equal to. Less than or equal to is a symbol. Check the front of your packet. Less than or equal to looks like that. And it's less than or equal to -2. So basically all I did was go through, and whenever it said a word, I wrote that as a symbol. So let's try again. The next one says 3. My symbol will be is less than. My variable is a number n. A number n just means, hey, n's your variable. Plus 5. So let's write each of those out. 3 less than, so let's use the less than symbol. A number n, so n plus 5. There we go. Let's try the last one here. As I read it, I'm gonna write what it says. 0. So I wrote a 0. Is greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to. Twice a number x. Think about what twice means. Twice means 2 times. So twice a number x means 2 times x, or 2x, plus 1. There's my inequality. So writing the inequality basically means taking the words and writing it out in symbols. In example 2, if we keep moving, we're actually going to test to see if something is a solution. So in example 2, I want to know, is -4 a solution to the inequality? In order for something to be a solution to the inequality, it has to be true. So here's what I mean. I want to know, is -4 a solution? So basically, can x be 4? That's what I'm asking. So I'm going to plug in 4 for x. So that'll be 4 plus 8 is less than -3. And I'll simplify this. 4 plus 8. Oh, I'm sorry. It says -4 here. I messed up. This should be -4 plus 8. -4 plus 8 is 4. So 4 is less than 3. Now I have to ask myself, is 4 less than -3? Is 4 less than -3? No. -3 is a negative number. 4 is not less than that. So the answer here is no. Because it's not true, that means -4 is not a solution. Let's do the same thing for the next one. Again, I'll plug in -4 for x. So this will be -4.5 times -4 is greater than -21. And then I'll solve. -4.5 times -4 is 18. So is 18 greater than -21? That's what I'm asking myself now. Yep, 18 is greater than -21. So my answer here is yes, -4 is a solution to that inequality. So to check if something is a solution, you basically have to plug it in for x and see if it's true. Is it a true statement? Then your answer is yes. Is it a false statement? Then your answer would be no. One of the last things we're going to do here, we're going to write inequalities in the last example, but in example 3, we're actually going to graph inequalities. So this is where that chart is going to come in handy. We talked about graphing things. We put dots or circles on a number line. The circle is based on the symbol. If it's so just as a reminder here, I'm going to write this down. If it's a less than or a greater than, then I use an open circle. If it's a less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, I use a closed circle. I put that circle on the number line at the number of my inequality. So let's take a look at A. my inequality, y is less than or equal to negative 3. So I need to start by putting negative 3 on my number line. I'm going to put negative 3 in the middle. However, I need to label the rest of my number line. So if negative 3 is in the middle, to the right of negative 3, the numbers get bigger, so less negative. Negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. On the left, they get smaller or more negative, so negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, and negative 8. Now that I have my number line drawn, I can put my dot at negative 3. So I'm going to put a circle at negative 3. I have to decide if I should leave that circle open or fill it in. I decide that based on my inequality. Because my inequality is less than or equal to, I fill it in. If it was just a less than, I would leave it open. So I fill in my circle, and now I have to decide where to put my arrow. This says less than or equal to. So think about which numbers are less than negative 3. It's all of these numbers over here, right? These numbers are less than negative 3. So that's the direction I want to put my arrow, to the left. Now, listen carefully to this. Less than will always be left if, and only if, this is a very important if, the variable is on the left side. Do you see how it says y first? As long as your variable is first, less than will always be left and greater than will always be right. Okay, but your variable has to be first. So now that's a good kind of lead to our second one. Take a look at B. Our variable is not first. Do you see that? I'm going to actually change this right away. I'm going to rewrite it the other direction. So I can basically flip everything and make this x is greater than 2. Do you see how the inequality still points at 2? I just flipped everything. It's the same thing. I can flip it. I just got to flip everything. So now this is what I'm going to graph to make it easier for myself. My variable is first, so that means my inequality, because it's a greater than, will point to the right. Again, I have to put 2 on my number line, so I'll put 2 in the middle, and I'll count up from 2. And I'll also count down from 2 to fill in my number line. I'll put a circle at 2, and we have to decide should it be open or closed. Because it's a greater than and not a greater than or equal to, it should be an open circle, so we'll leave it open. And then again, because my variable is first, my inequality points the direction my arrow should go. My inequality is pointing to the right. I'm going to draw my arrow to the right. That's all the numbers that are greater than 2. All right, let's take a look at the last one here. First things first is my variable on the left side. It's in the front, so we're good. So I'll start by putting 0 on my number line, and I'll count up from 0. And I'll count down from 0. I'll put that circle at 0, and I'll put my arrow to the right. X is greater than 0. So in the last example on the next page, we're going to actually write an inequality from a graph. So here we have a graph. In example 4, it says the graph shows the height restrictions h in inches for 2 rides at an amusement park. Write an inequality that that represents the height restrictions of each ride. So I'm going to write 2 inequalities. I'm going to write an inequality for ride A, and I'm going to write an inequality for ride B. If I'm going to write an inequality, I'm going to need a variable here. It looks like my variable will be h, representing the height restrictions. So let's take a look at ride A. H looks like the cutoff here is at 48. Notice how this is a circle that is filled in. That's going to be important for us. And the arrow goes to the right. So my circle is at 48, okay? So I know it's going to be h is at 48. I have to decide what symbol to put in there. So it's a closed circle, so I know it'll either be a less than or equal to or a greater than or equal to. My arrow is going to the right, representing the numbers bigger than 48, right? 49, 50, 51. So h is greater than or equal to 48. Let's do the same thing for ride B. H is at 52 here, and it's an open circle. This time the arrow is going to the left, representing all the numbers less than 52. So h is less than 52. It's less than and not less than or equal to because it's an open circle. So make sure you're noting the open and closed circle. That's going to be important for this. So that's it for writing and graphing inequalities. In the next couple sections, we'll start solving inequalities. But for this, all we had to do is write it and graph it.